All right. Which way do I need to be? Am I in the right
You're
place?
good.
It was telling me to rotate, and then I rotated, and then anyway, I'm here.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm sorry it was such a pain getting this technology to work.
It's okay. I always make this joke, but it's not really funny that I work at Bin Innovation, a tech-based organization, and I'm like the least tech-savvy person out there. So,
Well, you know what?
you know,
One of my early tactics in my career as an attorney. So this would have been like 90. Well, I got out of law school in 1991. So this would have been in the early 90s, and working on a weekend, and a couple of the male attorneys, a junior associate and a junior partner and a senior associate, they hadn't arranged for a secretary on the weekend. And back in those days, you know, knowing technology was sort of associated with like word processing. Like it wasn't, you know, we weren't thinking, you know, hidden figures and, you know, AI and transforming the world. It was like technology made, you know, typing a letter easier, you know, because you had a computer versus a typewriter. So it was very much looked at that manual task. And we were in on a weekend, and these guys hadn't gotten a secretary. And they said to a senior partner, they said, you know, hey, was I busy? And the senior partner looked at them and said, if you two idiots didn't arrange for a secretary to type stuff on the weekend, you better learn to type and fast, because that's not what Kelly's here for. So fast forward, like as I sat there as this junior, like little punk associate, I thought, okay, if plan A is having a really ferocious mentor who's got your back, what's plan B when you don't have that mentor? So I thought,
yeah.
I am going to be an idiot and not learn this stuff. So I am highly successful at screwing up conference calls. Like, never get me to set up a conference call. I will fail it. I don't know how to do a spreadsheet. So yeah, the fact that I'm having to live in this technology world as well and do all this stuff is kind of funny. So I get your pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you think about some of the great tech companies that are out there now, the ones that, gosh, the ones that haven't had scandals, the ones that are creating products we love, like Slack. You have people who have founded the company and who are hired in running the company who are very creative and have had degrees in humanities. And so human skills, I think, actually, in this day and age, whether it is building your company, building the next great, you know, unicorn, billion-dollar company, transforming the economy, you know, human skills and being a good human being who can communicate and talk to others, engage with others, understand and have empathy, judgment, reasoning. Those are human skills. And the more we have those, you know, you and I can fumble around and figure out Facebook Live. Like that's, but it's a lot harder and a lot more damaging, you know, when we fumble around and figure out that
Yeah.
we're not very good humans.
Yeah, very true. You're an attorney. You're also a seasoned investor, a startup founder, connector, sought after speaker, and a published author. You have a very interesting background, career changes. Could you talk us through your journey of this and how and when you decided to make those changes?
Well, I mean, some of the changes I've made were, and you know, so to say, the very basic change I made when I stopped practicing law in 2002, and then in 2004 got into law firm management. That was very much sort of like, all right, it's kind of, not that I didn't like practicing law, I really did, but it wasn't just giving me enough meaning. And that really started the journey of like, what is it that gives me meaning in my career? But that was probably the most sort of routine and made perhaps expected in some ways to take your expertise and move it into another application with the same industry. But every other career change after that has come about because of networks and relationships. And it kind of gets back to what I was saying before when I said that when you think about a lawyer and word of mouth and reputation and what you're known for and other people talking about you, like what are people saying about you when you're not in the room? When that really kicked into broader networks, that's when my career got interesting. And that's when you can sort of look at it and go, okay, how did this lawyer end up, you know, published author? You know, how did this lawyer end up, you know, the first president of a global business networking group for women? How did those opportunities? And it was really that word of mouth and reputation. And then thinking, when I think about this in, you know, someone maybe watching this or watching the video later could kind of go, oh yeah, gee, that's nice, Kelly, but you're in New York City, you know, like, hey, that's how, you know, these opportunities are going to come to you. But some of these things were happening before we had the really rich, robust internet that we have, before we had the really rich, robust platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or whichever other one out there. So between, I want to say, blogging and sharing your knowledge and sharing what it is you want to be found for, so many of us can have opportunities, and it doesn't matter, you know, where you're located. And it's all like reputation and trust. And so that's one of those things that I think people have to realize, like, you know, in terms of your most important assets in life, you have relationships, you have reputation, and you have time. And they all rest together. You know, we can all think, oh, those are our most valuable personal assets. And relationships and reputation, you build up, you know, you can stumble on them, but you can earn them back. But you've got to be really careful, because you got to realize when you're asking someone to do something for you, or, you know, how are people talking about you when you're not in the room? When they're talking about you and about your reputation, they're also expending their own reputation when they are vouching or holding you up. And then on this, I'll just also mention just time. That's the one thing I always say to people, you know, you can enhance relationships and you can enhance reputation if you respect and acknowledge the limitations of time. It is our one personal asset that is non-renewable. You lose it, you waste it, you squander it, it ain't coming back. And I have more people who I think I have diminished, like in my mind, their reputation has been diminished with me because of their lack of respect of time.
So the book you published, which is a great book, I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. It's called Build Your Dream Network, and it's about the power of meaningful connection, which I love. And when you read it, it's like you're talking to me. It was so cool. I thought that was great. I really, really writing style. What made you decide that, hey, you've got something to say, you know enough, let me write a book and share my thoughts with the entire world?
Oh, that sort of all of a sudden became like, you know, that sort of unexpected thing, that burning, like, feeling you've got in your gut, like you've got to do this, and you had to have an outlet for it. It was never a big ambition. I mean, I'm gonna say, I'll be in Moncton, I'll be amongst Canadians, they'll get this. I mean, I grew up reading Robertson Davies and Margaret Atwood and Alice Munro and Michael Ondaatje. When I think about writing and writing a book, that's my, you know, that's what I think of. And so it never crossed my mind to ever write a book. But I had been, for a variety of reasons, I had started blogging and writing and doing a newsletter, and it was all sort of marketing, the adjunct to, or to help do a job I was doing. It was like, oh, these tools are there. Let me see how people, you know, how to use them so I can advise other people on how to use them. I'd never really put it in the context of me personally and what, you know, hey, let me set this up. And then realized at some point, people liked the way I wrote. People liked what I had to say. And it also provided an outlet for the questions I was frequently asked. You know, there's only so many times you can answer the same question, and then you kind of go, why don't I put it in a newsletter or on a blog, and I can refer people to that. And those questions, the same questions kept coming at me, or similar questions from people from a variety of industries. And that's why I was like, okay, let's put this in a book. Let me show people that, you know, I'm going to say, to build their dream career, to build the life that they want to have, here's how they do this. You know, my personal frustration with other networking advice out there was, it was very much either put all your contacts in a spreadsheet. I'm never going to do that. I don't know about you. Not my style. Not going to happen. Two, it said, you know, here's the yeah, here's the 10 things you need to do. And I'm like, if it was that easy, we'd all do the 10 things. It would be like, you know,
Yeah.
making the perfect hard-boiled egg, or making the perfect soft-boiled egg. We'd know exactly what we'd have to do, and we'd never screw it up, and we could do the 10 things. We know that's, you know, that's a lie. But I did discover there is a process that if you keep repeating that, and a roadmap so that you can create your own magic, you can create your own inspiration, and you're not left there scrambling going, yeah, but how the hell did she, and I'll use an example, how the hell did she meet Tom Peters, you know, the best-selling author? It's like, I met him on Twitter, and here's how you do it. And you know, wanted other people to be able to create, you know, whatever it was they were looking for, because I've been able to create it for myself. And, you know, I kind of never expected I'd be where I am right now.
What an interesting journey. Was it difficult writing a book to have a well thought out 200+ page plan?
Well,
and work with an editor.
Well, it was like, it's one of those things where, how can I put it to people? It's like the one time having that detailed outline really came in handy. And not having ever written something like, you know, like a book, like I never, I think I used to always sort of look at books and think, you know, how do people do that? Like, you know, when you think about, you know, like the Harry Potter series, like how, like character development, how do you write? So I never, you know, kind of ever, like just the process of it hadn't crossed my mind. So a very detailed outline of the lessons from the writing process. You know, if you want to write 2 hours a day, like find your 2 hours a day and just write. Don't worry if it's good or if it's bad. It's you know, part of it is a muscle, and you've just got to do it. You know, and pay attention to when you're most creative. And I would say this, whether you want to be a writer or not, like when do you produce your highest and best work, and guard that time to produce your highest and best work. If you can produce your highest and best work at 6 in the morning, but that's when you go to the gym, guess what? Change your gym time. Like, it's like, for me, it's like, if that's when you're most creative, give your work, give your creativity, give it that best time to produce your best output. I'd also say to people, and on that, you know, it is a book written, I think, with people who want to write fiction in mind, but I read it in a bigger context. So the author Stephen King wrote a book called On Writing. Don't worry, it's not a horror movie or the basis for one of his horror movies. So if you're not into the Stephen King genre of Misery or Carrie, don't worry. This is not this. But he talks about his writing process. And I think if you want to be a writer, I'd like say you must read this book. But also too, if you think about your career and why you do things, Stephen King didn't write or doesn't write to be a best-selling writer. He writes for one person, and that is his wife. That is the audience he thinks about, and whether or not she likes it. He has a passion for writing and for writing stories. And if they never turned into big, huge blockbusters, I can tell you, he'd still be living in Maine and pumping out books. And I think you need to find out, you know, people are often said, you know, hey, find your passion, and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, you know what? Your passion, you may say, this is not going to be realistic. I mean, Stephen King at one point was working in a laundry and living in a single wide, you know, in Maine. You know, talk about being poor and in a miserable situation. That would have been his description. But he wrote Carrie, you know, his makeshift desk was on the back of his washing machine. You know, like, if you want to follow your passion, like, you know, decide that's what you want to do and realize the consequences of doing that. If you're saying I want to have a certain lifestyle, well, guess what? You may just have to suck it up and take a job you don't like. I just, you know, but that book is really a profound one in terms of thinking about what it is you want to do and what's the life you want to lead and what are you prepared to do to get there.
Yeah. So I'm going to change directions here for a little segue. I'm in communications and I have to manage our social media. And when I heard one of the most influential women in tech on Twitter. I was like, I need to know what your thoughts are on Twitter and how you use it.
I love Twitter. I absolutely love it. For me, one of the reasons I love it is, put aside trolls and Russian bots and, the crap. When I originally started using it in 2009, sort of as a discovery tool, like what is this, and getting information. And then I realized what it is this is one big old cocktail party. And this platform has democratized access. Doors that were closed to us before because, we weren't a Rockefeller, or we, didn't have a Harvard MBA, and, we didn't go to Eton, or, whatever the case may be, is all of a sudden you can, based on, having something to say and doing it in a way that is like a guest who gets invited back or into a conversation. If you take those in real life, kind of, hey, what makes someone the kind of person you want to talk to? What makes the person you say, oh, I want you at the dinner table, or I want to invite you as that extra guest because you really, like, people enjoy talking to and engaging with you, and you're that generous person. You take that mindset and behavior, all of a sudden something like Twitter becomes like, wow, like who you get to meet and why you get to meet them. And people will say to me all the time, hey, how do you know that person? I'm like, yeah, I met them on Twitter. And the more I find, the more you are yourself, the more you are the person you are in real life, the more you get out of a platform like that. The more you're yourself, as opposed to thinking there's rules, the more you engage with people, the more you realize, hey, like how different is a like, or a retweet than exactly what you did in our conversation like 5 seconds ago. You said, right, you nodded. Like, how is that different than a like or a retweet? So the more you're human, the more you realize, gosh, I can get to know someone. I can have valuable dialogue. I can be invited into conversations based on those human qualities, not someone looking at, a CV or, seeing if I'm the right sort.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never thought of likes and retweets as human interactive. Really cool way of thinking past for that.
Well, I think it's one of those things and I really advocate on this because, you think about all the touch points we have now as human beings, and all of us have, like, if the goal of networking at the end of the day, and, is building relationships. And if you realize we have all sorts of different touch points and different communication preferences. By way of example, and you know this because you've called me and got my voicemail, I don't like voicemail.
I really appreciated it.
So we all have like preferences. So there may be like somebody's preference for meeting for coffee may be in direct conflict with somebody else's desire just to get a text. And so we need to realize that the digital and the analog, the online and the in real life, all of that comes together to say who we are as people. And all of those are part of this rich experience of communicating as human beings. And the more we think about that and realize getting to know someone may start with following them on Twitter or their Instagram account. It may be connecting with them at a cocktail party and then connecting with them on LinkedIn. And all of these things come together as opposed to thinking it's just, networking is just, schmoozing at cocktail parties or going for coffee dates.
How do you see Facebook and LinkedIn then? Or Instagram? How do you see the other social media?
So you think about your life. For me, LinkedIn is the office. I like literally I get like I'm in my jeans and a casual sweater today, but when I get on LinkedIn, I'm putting my suit on. That's like old school. That's when I think about LinkedIn, like what, that is professional. Why do we go on that platform? I do not go on that platform to find out what someone had for lunch, unless they're a cook or a restaurant owner and that's their business. I don't want to see dialogue like I would see on Twitter. There's a different conversation when you are in a professional career business environment. I want things, and I share information that is around my expertise or maybe around community interests I have. But I try and share things that I think are going to help other people in their business or with their career. Facebook, when I look at it, I think friends and family. And that's the original reason I went on it. My nephews were on it. It was a great way for me to stay in touch with them. So look at it this way. Say you got a promotion at work. How would you describe it with professional colleagues? Or, if you got some kind of community or business accolade, there's a way you describe it with your connections in a business world. Now, jump around the family dining table, how do you describe things? You describe it in a different way. There is a more casual, more familiar, there's more, almost say in some way there's more warmth in it. But you can share the same information. You just communicate it differently. And now jump over to Twitter and you think to yourself, all right, how do you share a success story with your girlfriends when you're hanging out, somewhere? There's a different vibrancy and energy, a different, it's the same you, but you express it slightly differently. And that's why, when I see people post things the same way on all platforms, I'm like, something tells me you're not that, unidimensional in your communication, that our relationships are different. How we express things, how we share them are different contextually. So for me, when I think about those platforms, I really do think about them in, I want to say in that physical context, like I imagine myself in that room and how would I express it? And that really helped me originally thinking about, all right, how can I leverage these? How can I use these platforms? How can I maximize this as a networking opportunity in that way? Instagram is, it's a great hybrid. I mean, people use it both ways, both in terms of business and personal. As and I know, the visual's more important than perhaps anything else. It's interesting. I think interior designers have been highly successful in using Instagram in terms of business, but even a lot of them, because we're all like voyeurs and like somebody's house and what does it look like and where do they live and, all that kind of stuff. But even interior designers find that sometimes it's the image that has something very personal in it. Their dog, the bike they ride to work, something like that gets the most engagement. So I think, even with a platform like Instagram, I think showing who you are and letting people see that kind of more of yourself than maybe you would want to otherwise, that helps.
Throughout your career, you've had great changes. Do you have any advice for women to encourage them, any words of wisdom to help them move forward in their career?
I'm going to say the three pieces of advice I typically dish out, and just particularly for women, but for anybody listening, watching, build your expertise. We live in an era where anyone can say they're an expert on anything, but build your real expertise and be known for something. Then make sure you build your network, because that expertise is not going to take off. You are not going to have a vibrant career if no one knows what it is that you bring to the table. So be generous and share it and tell people what you want to be found for, so there is no confusion over the opportunities that should be coming your way. And then the third piece of advice, particularly for women, is build your bank account. It's a lot easier to pursue the career you want when you have a Yes Me fund. The fund that can, help fuel your own ideas and your own ambitions. And part of that Yes Me fund is not just money in the bank, but it is your ability to barter, because you have people who are in your network who you've been generous to and helped, that they will help you. So, if you need, someone says to you, I'll build your new website, but will you babysit my kids? Or, hey, you want to start a company, you've been great and helpful for me, you can come and work out of our offices. That's the other kind of part of building your bank account. Who else will come and have your back? And, you know, I think all of us need to look around every once in a while and say, right, who's got our back?
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you. I'm really glad I asked that question now.
You thought there was like, but wait, there's one more. Yeah,
No,
so
yes,
there it
you
is.
have. This is great. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. I really love chatting to you.
Thank you so much for this. It's been a whole lot of fun. In spite of our initial technical stuff, it was a whole lot of fun. Thank you for making it happen.
Well, now we both know how to do a split Facebook Live. So I feel like we've learned something.
Yeah, we'll do it. Let's make sure we do it again.
Okay. Sounds great. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.